Welcome to the podcast that does more than just discuss. Embodying Spirit unpacks key metaphysical and psycho-spiritual theories through heartful discussion and playful debate, and then gives you applications and exercises to bring these concepts into your own life. Isabel Almeida, wellbeing coach, and Tārā Love, healing arts facilitator and ceremony guide, have been on the conscious healing train for 40 years between them, studying a range of modalities from yoga and somatic healing to community engagement and philosophy. As best friends, co-creators, dynamic mothers, and dreamers of a better way to live, they have been seeking to live in conscious community for a long time. This is a collection of the conversations around consciousness, connection, and community they've been having for many years. The duo draw on a vast range of theories and schools of thought, claiming the sacred feminine space of relationality between many influences, from Hermeticism, Vedic scripture, to quantum physics, to shamanism, and beyond. Also claiming their deeply intuitive inner knowing. They share these deep chats, ideas, and debates openly, bringing new embodied perspectives to ancient wisdom. Each episode begins with a discussion, leading into an immersive exercise and a guided meditation. They share these vital ideas and tools in practical and grounded ways to inspire waves of self-empowered awakening in the world at a time when we need it most. We really hope you enjoy.
Greetings, beautiful souls. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Embodying Spirit, episode 10. Everything is a gift. Gratitude and trusting the universe. Thank you. Or as we sometimes feel, everything is a fucking gift. Because sometimes it doesn't feel like a gift. And some days just feel hard. And, this episode's not about whitewashing or lightwashing or bypassing or trying to make everything all roses. As you know from our previous episodes, we've talked about a lot, kind of embracing the mess and the dark and the real, and really going into those emotions and the truth of everything that we are, and embracing the wholeness. And today we're going to talk about, for me, one of the most helpful mantras that's really, really helped me to reposition my understanding of my reality. Because as we've said many times, we create our own realities. And if you can function from the position of everything being a gift, then I think it's a real win. And and as we've kind of unpacked in this whole series, I think we're kind of coming into that understanding that we can see the universe as this divine playground in which to learn more and more about ourselves, to know thyself more as a manifestation of the divine. In that understanding of this kind of, this place to play and to grow and to know more, we can truly step into that higher awareness that everything is a gift. That doesn't mean that it's always fun. That doesn't mean that it's always nice. But it's always guiding us towards a greater understanding of our oneness, or it's showing us a reflection of where we're still feeling separated and in distortion that's not serving us.
Yeah. It's funny, as you were talking, I had this image. It's like when you look in the mirror and, like you look in the mirror to see if you look fine, right? And your hair is slightly a mess, so you fix your hair. It's like, well, obviously you don't look at the mirror and say, oh, look, I'm really upset that I saw that piece of hair was out of place. That mirror works for you to be able to know that actually, oh, okay, great, then I can fix that. And it's like when we look in life and we see our reflection and it's showing us what we're not wanting to be or see or whatever, like, what's the distortion, we can get upset with it. But actually, when we're looking at it as a gift, we look at it and we're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is reflecting back to me that actually I'm being unnecessarily judgmental or unnecessarily, or I've got stuck here. And so then we can be like, oh, how can I then see this as more wholesome? And that's exactly what we're saying. From that perspective, then of course it's all a gift, because it's all showing us where we can be more united with our God awareness. So
And then it just all
yeah,
becomes a divine mirror and a divine teacher, as every experience becomes a reflection of us and the condition of our own heart, as we're saying. And so it all
yeah,
becomes a lesson, a gift, but not a lesson in it doesn't have to be harsh, like that teacher that raps your
it's
knuckles as well. You know, it's also like, that's why gift is nicer than a lesson, as a way of saying it. Like, with our words, we're spelling, we're creating spells, we're creating a reality. So there's a softness that we can allow ourselves in saying, oh, it's a gift. It's a window, it's a reflection, but it's a window into our soul, which becomes a reflection of who we are, which shows us a little bit more of ourselves and allows ourselves to align more with what it is that we desire. And to release maybe what isn't serving us. Just to know a little bit more about ourselves as well. It doesn't also have to be a callback necessarily. It's just a way of understanding ourselves more. As we keep saying, know thyself, right?
it's only when we think, when we start to think in terms of good and bad, that we judge what, it's like, I don't like that. But then when we see it as actually it's all just self-awareness, self-knowledge, of course, then it just becomes like, well, there's nothing to like or not like. It doesn't really matter if you like it or don't like it. It's just giving you more awareness. Oh, okay, great. It's just giving me more awareness then. So, yeah.
Yeah, allowing to see. Yeah, even like, it's like, you can just see it as almost like an immediate feedback loop as well. It's like, what works? Do you know what I mean? Like, is that working for you? Oh, that's not working for me. That was something that came to me in terms of the gifts of the universe. And, it's like, this is all you choose to believe as well, right? Obviously, but I'll talk a bit more about that now. But like, you think you should be doing something. For example, like, I thought I should be running this theatre company. And obviously I should have been, because I did, on the one hand. And at the same time, it's like, I kept receiving the signs from the universe that this is really hard. And then I did quite well with it. I'm really proud of the work that I created with Beautiful Mess. But it's like, yeah, it was like, it was like when I woke up, and when my daughter woke up one morning, and I was still there sitting at the computer typing out a funding application, right? And it's like, you'd have to keep asking. It was just like, there was just more and more need for more and more hoops that we had to jump through to say what we were going to do. It was getting tighter and tighter. The funding was getting less and less. Shutting down the centres for adults with disability, who are a huge client group of mine. And I'm just like, and I could have been like, oh, this is awful, the world, blah, 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 blah. And then I'm like, okay, but how is this a gift? Oh, well, it's showing me actually that this isn't the pot. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, okay, this is a gift, and it's showing me this isn't what I'm meant to be doing. Because I definitely don't think that I should be working 24 hours a day in order to be able to make this work, right? In terms of sanity. And my daughter was there to reflect that back to me anyway, because
Exactly.
I somehow did think it was, and then it's like, oh, okay, well, then this becomes a gift, because it's showing me that there's something else. And I mean, flash forward 5 years later, and my entire world has shifted, and the work I'm doing now is so much more fulfilling, and I'm able to rest so much more within it,
Yeah, it's because sometimes it's that thing, is because we think we know the outcome that is best for us, why we reject what's in front of us often, because we're like, no, but I've said that I'm going to have this successful theatre company, and it's going to do this and this and this. So then anything that comes in that says, oh, it's not going smoothly that way, becomes something that you resist. No, but it's going wrong, because it's supposed to be over here. And I mean, and of course it makes sense with that mindset why you then will be something, a painful experience. But of course, in the awareness that, oh no, it's the universe that is intelligent. The universe is the one that's actually that's showing me and teaching me, and that's what I'm surrendering my will to that knows what I desire greater than my ego, the idea of myself. Then in that there becomes you loosen the grip on even what you think you want. And then, the flow of that is just a lot easier. And that takes practice, doesn't it? Like, to keep like as we said, like sometimes it's like,
and
it's a
also
gift.
okay to exactly. It's also okay. It's like, just to clarify as well, it's not that I didn't mourn my theatre company as well, right? Like, and I remember many conversations with you about, is it the right decision? Is it the right decision? And it wasn't like an overnight decision, or it took time for me to come to terms with it. But also the way I was then gifted on the other side of that, because it was a brave move, and I moved country and I didn't know what I was going to do. And then suddenly things happened totally out of my control overnight that gave me security and a whole new career path, like literally instantaneously. Because I also think that the universe responds when you trust it. It's a two-way trust process as well. So when you start trusting the universe, it starts trusting you and giving gifts in a way that you would not otherwise be able to receive. Because you open yourself to possibility and you let go of that strict ego. No, I know what's best. I'm going to forge this path because I don't trust the universe, because the universe is this ugly, like chaotic, unloving thing, and actually I need to make it all. I have to control it all. And once we surrender and we allow things to unfold with our desires and our intentions kept there in our hearts, that then things can be gifted. And it really is about letting go of that should. I mean, that's something I've been working with for years. I told everyone I was giving up the word should years ago. And I stopped. I'm really good at stopping it in my vocab, but it's still there in the unconscious as well. This should be happening. I should be. I mean, think about it now, everyone. Like, all those things that you thought you should be when you were little, like, oh, when I should have a husband and I should have this many kids and I should be making this number of millions or whatever, and I should have this qualification, and all of that just leads to your unhappiness, right? And if you can let go of that and just accept that this is what's happening and that everything is a gift and everything you've experienced is a gift in the raising of your consciousness, then we're living in a very different world.
And in fact, we see it in our language because we call it the present moment. So we call it the gifted moment, right? So it's
Beautiful.
there for us. Sorry, I didn't hear that.
I just said beautiful.
Yeah. So it's there for us. We can receive it like that. I mean, it's not that far from our understanding. It's just that, we ignore what we know, but we just don't really penny it, I suppose, more than anything else, until that's why we're having these conversations, just to bring it back to our awareness that actually this is really, I mean, every moment is a gifted moment. Like, regardless of whether it's attached to an idea of what we're wanting to get, or, it's just the fact that we're here and we're alive, and that in itself could just, this whole experience could be taken away from us and transformed into another. So it's like, well, while we're still here, then let's really dance in the now of this moment.
And it's tough also because we get caught up in the overculture, dominant society's idea of success, which again we've talked about a lot, but so that's why the should also becomes so loud as well, right? Because there are these external ideas that we've internalized about what it is that we are here to do and achieve in this lifetime, which are very caught up in the material, that our bodies and our jobs, or whatever, our function in society. Whereas if we can align ourselves again with it just simply being about knowing ourselves, about increasing our consciousness and evolving, like then it becomes easier also to see what the gifts might be, right? Because it's just about growing in awareness.
And then we say thank you for the divine mirror, because we understand, that's really all we're doing is looking to see what's being reflected back at us, to see what we're putting out, to see what we're receiving, what we're putting out, what we're receiving. So
it makes me think of the whole concept of karma as well, which is an ancient Hindu, I mean, I think it might even go pre-Hindu, like ancient Indian kind of concept that's really misused as well, right? This idea of like, you're going to get bad karma, like it's some kind of punishment, in terms of what's happening in your life. Like, but people might even be listening and thinking, well, I just got bad karma, like all these things like happening to me, you know? And again, it kind of takes away, or it resonates with this idea also of there being a sort of higher than force, like a malevolent God also that's kind of like, I'm going to punish you because you've done bad things and now you must learn, you know. Again, this idea of like, yes, yeah, I'm gonna take things away from you or make bad things happen to you because you've been bad. That kind of, you know, like a wrathful parent almost, you know. But actually, the true meaning of karma is action, right?
Totally.
So, what you were saying something before about when you did your yoga training in India.
Yeah, so when we did the yoga training after our session, they would say your karma is to clean up the space, and that everyone had to do their karma just as their action. It was like as their service. So karma is, yeah, exactly. It's about the action, and then because we see karma as a reaction, right? That's where we mistake it. But when we're understanding it, it's just action, and it's actions and actions and actions that
And it's
lead
the law of
to.
causality as well, isn't it? It's that idea that like actions lead to other actions, like not even consequence. It is causality, cause and effect, right? But it's like the karma is that you planted seeds and now you have vegetables to eat, right? And then the karma of you planting those of eating those vegetables is that you're going to have a healthy body, and the karma of you having a healthy body is that you're going to produce strong children, right? And the karma, and then the thing is that it can also go over lifetimes, and it can go over generations as well. So, and that's where I guess the idea of punishment has come from, because it's like maybe the karma of your ancestors having committed certain acts of blindness means that you are now carrying that shame. Let me say that, because I don't think it means that you will now be killed, for example. Do you know what I mean? Because again, this goes back to the malevolent versus benevolent view of the universe. But I think of it more as in like that means that then we have shame or guilt written into our ancestry because of the acts of our forefathers, right? Yeah. What were you going to say? Sorry.
As I say, it's just not designed in good and bad. That's just what it's not. It's just designed by more awareness, is like fundamentally. So when we see it in that way, we're like, oh, the karma of this lifetime, you know, it's just like how. So, for instance, if you know, but this is my in my imagination, this is how it would work. So if we would have committed, say, we'd have done something against humanity in another lifetime, then in this lifetime we would have the experience of that in some which way in order to be able to grow in compassion, right? So that we can learn. And lessons are neither good or bad either. They're just like, you know, just something to learn either. So when we're saying like we're just growing in knowledge of, so then it just becomes, like we say, just more and more awareness. I mean, that's, as we speak, that's what we're here.
As well, right? That thing of also the universe, like that there's not kind of, that we talked about before, but it's not like there's morals, like, oh, this is good and this is bad. It's just like, as above, so below, as within, so without. You know, if there's a cause, there's an effect. You know, it's very simple kind of patterns that if you act in a certain way, there's going to be a repercussion to that, not because of some outside punishment or because you have to have luck or because, you know, this. It's just that there's a like every action has an equal and opposite reaction. You know, it's that kind of idea of things.
Yeah,
Right?
and it makes sense that if like you really see yourself as God awareness, like if you like, for instance, let's take it down to the level and say like as a parent, right? As a parent, you know, if I want to be a better parent, then I potentially want, you know, and I've dealt with something badly. For instance, like, you know, my child was crying, right, and I disregarded her, you know, and I wasn't there for her. I was a good parent, and that's good. to use that word, but as an aware parent, as a loving parent, I'm going to be like, oh, give me that opportunity again to be more aware, so that when now that she cries, I comfort her, because that's what I understand now is what I would have liked to do had I had the knowledge. And so you can understand then how we could then recreate ourselves again with an awareness of, oh, okay, well, let me come into this lifetime so that I can really play this out now, because I've understood something more.
I mean, this makes me think of Journey of Souls by Michael Newton, which I read a few years ago, and I love as a book. I'll put it in the show notes. And this guy, he hypnotized hundreds of people, and he was trying to, use hypnosis. He was using hypnosis to help diagnose and cure physical ailments. And then he found, that there were things that happened in childhood, and then he kind of accidentally hypnotized somebody into a past life, into a previous life, and realized that particularly the way people died maybe in their previous life would then cause a really random physical ailment in this life. Right? And then, and this is just where he tells it, he accidentally, again, hypnotized somebody into between lives. So he's talking to the soul in between incarnations. And he does this with hundreds of people. And his story goes that he's done this with hundreds of people, all from different places, didn't know each other, and all of their stories corroborate in terms of what happens. Now, obviously, you can be a skeptic and say rubbish, but first of all, why would you make it up? Well, there's many answers to that question, but I just love it. And I'm like, I don't care. I just think this is a great understanding of the world and of the way things work. And he describes this whole beautiful system of what happens to us. And go read the book to find many details. I could literally just recount it the whole podcast. I'm not going to do that. And he briefly kind of talks about how you go into a very much a learning space where you have a little soul cluster, and you look back over your life, and you have your guides as well, and you review what happened. And again, it says, hierarchy just doesn't exist in the same way. The idea of good and bad doesn't exist. All these things that we've been talking about. But that you can look and be like, oh, I can see where I, didn't quite embrace my oneness there, or, where I was in distortion there, where I could have been more allowing, more loving here or there. And as beautiful as it is there, you know that you're also going to learn more when you incarnate again. So you kind of stay there until you feel rested and you're ready. And then at some point you choose, your soul chooses, this is the best place to learn, right? Being on Earth. And actually there's other planets as well, but there's, So when you're going to incarnate again, you choose. You get to choose. And it's a bit more complicated. It's not like you get to choose everything, and there's a few options that are given to you. But it's exactly that. You, based on the lessons that you were learning in the previous incarnation, based on what it is that you think you maybe didn't do so well at, or you could improve at, or that you really feel that your soul needs to really focus on in order to evolve more, you pick a life that you think is going to really help you learn those things. Yes, this makes so much sense. It really helps me to understand that everything's a gift, and also to not question so much people's suffering, because it helps you to understand how suffering is also a form of learning. Yeah. Which just makes sense because then it's like we choose the life that we want to lead, and it helps me to also realize that we are not, it helps me to understand other people's suffering more as well, and to understand that suffering that we all experience to different degrees has been orchestrated by our higher selves in order to help us to learn. And it's a difficult one, because you think, how could I possibly have chosen this, or how could I possibly have chosen that? That's awful. Why would anyone choose this situation? Looking at other particularly, no. But it feels right in my gut, because also it helps me to understand the the logic of the universe, because otherwise I'm like, well, why the hell are all these people suffering in such awful ways, right? And this way I'm like, okay, this makes sense. This helps me to understand that we're all, and let me clarify one thing here. I'm not saying that means that we're not meant to have deep compassion for each other in that suffering, and that we're not meant to also work to bring greater love and joy to the world through, and the only way to do that is through bringing greater love and joy to ourselves. And as we do that from a full cup, we bring joy and love to other people, you know, and doing that. And I think, this is also another episode in and of itself, right? But it's like we can't serve from an empty cup. So we need to fill our cups. And as we do that, we automatically start to serve other, because we are all connected, you know. And so then that also, because we're all connected, then helps other people in their journeys of enlightenment as well. And that's why we all do the work that we do. Generally, people that are on a healing journey have jobs that are bringing compassion and light and love to the greater universe, because they're understanding we're all connected. So it's not about like, oh well, they chose that life, so let them suffer. That's not that, and that's not what it made me feel when I read it either. But it helped me to take that edge off the helplessness that I sometimes felt around the extreme suffering of the world.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. It's important to have ideas that help you to feel grounded in this world as well. So, like, you know, like you say, like that helps you to understand that how the universe is benevolent and working for us, right? And that's like, you know, everything is a gift. Really helps you to receive what's being offered.
So then what happens is that you can stop living in the kind of victim mentality of everything's happening to you, and you're this kind of poor little child that's being tossed around by the universe, and you can start living a more empowered existence, because you can do that and knowing that you've been part of orchestrating what it is that you're experiencing. Like not just even in this lifetime through the karma of this life, but also through past lives. And I really like that way of looking at it. And that's when we can shift that voice. And I always say this to people when they're going into mushroom journey, is to become the philosopher. So instead of asking the question, I mean, it's actually the same question, it's just about the tone in which you ask it. So instead of being like, why is this happening to me? Oh, to be like, why is this happening to me? You know, like, and to become a bit more of the scientist, actually, who's kind of trying to figure it out, with the caveat that you can't always know.
And yes,
the surprise
sometimes,
and the pain and the obscurity is also part of the journey, right?
And sometimes, you know, exactly, it may take years before you understand what the gift is, like, and being able to surrender to that is just to surrender to that philosophy, and knowing that, oh, actually this is working for me, is what helps you heal in that moment and stay grounded. Otherwise it'd be so easy just to lose your mind and think like, oh my god, why is everything against me?
It makes me think of my mum's death, you know, like I definitely and I mean, and I wasn't it was before I'd met you, so I really didn't have any of these frameworks and philosophies to help me at that time, but I mean, I wonder if even if I had, I'd been able to have seen the gift, you know, in the moment. I'd like to think that if it happened now, I would be able to be a little bit more philosophical about it. But certainly, we're not saying it's going to take away the pain either, because the pain is the gift as well. That's the thing, right? It's like going through that pain and going through that experience. So my mum died when she was very young, 48, cancer, and it was all very sudden. My daughter was 2, and she'd been her primary carer as well. So it was a massive, massive shock. And I'm an only child, and she was a single mum, and I was also a single mum. So it was like massive upheaval. She's also my best friend. And I was a big, you know, huge amount of railing at the universe and why, you know. And like I say, I don't know if I'd had these frameworks, it would have made a difference. But certainly being able to look back later, I can see why. I can understand. And it doesn't take away the pain, and it doesn't stop me from crying about the loss still 15 years later. But I also understand that was actually the catalyst of my spiritual awakening. That it's triggered a huge amount of ancestral healing for my line. It's been really, really important. That it, triggered me going on a whole journey that's led to what it is that I'm here to offer to the world now. That it also catapulted me into taking responsibility to be a really, really good parent. Many, many things. The list is endless, actually.
And I agree with you. It's not necessarily that it takes away the pain. Obviously, I mean, of course, it doesn't take away the pain, obviously, but it takes the edge of it, as in, because obviously it's that idea that that even though you're not aligned with that full understanding in the moment of the gift, and or even the ability to really stand in the story in front of you and be like, okay, this is for me, or this is supposed to happen. There's a thought that at some point I will come into that knowing, or at some point I will find that healing. When you have that philosophy and that framework in the background, when you don't have that, that's when you can find that you can go into just pure madness, because then it becomes all here now, and it can be undigestible, and that, of course, that's.
And I think it's about that shift also from seeing the outcome of life, or the intention of life, like shifting it from being happy to being whole, right? So we talk
Definitely.
about a lot. It's not about being happy, it's about being whole. And whole means integrating all parts of ourselves and know thyself, as we talk about often, right? So that also makes it easier to see the gift, because then we can start to understand the idea of pain being our teacher.
100%.
And
yeah, and there was also there was this story that I came across that I wanted to share as well, about a farmer, and I thought it just speaks of this really well. So there was a farmer and his son, and they'd had a beloved horse who helped the family earn a living. And one day the horse ran away, and the neighbours exclaimed, "Your horse has run away. What terrible luck." And the farmer replied, "Maybe so, maybe not." And a few days later, the horse returned home, leading a few wild horses back to the farm as well. And the neighbours shouted out, "Your horse has returned and brought several horses home with him. What great luck!" And the farmer replied, "Maybe so, maybe not." And later that week, the farmer's son was trying to break one of the horses, and she threw him to the ground, breaking his leg. And the neighbours cried, "Your son broke his leg. What terrible luck." And the farmer replied, "Maybe so, maybe not." And a few weeks later, the soldiers from the National Army marched through town, recruiting all boys for the army. They did not take the farmer's son because he'd broken his leg. And the neighbours shouted, "Your boy is spared. What tremendous luck." To which the farmer replied, "Maybe so, maybe not. We'll see." And, the point of the story is that actually nothing is clear, right? So it's like what looks like a gift, as in for you, what looks like for you, as that this is something that's like working for you now, can be something that works to bring something else later. And what looks like that's working against you now can bring something later. And of course, it's all a gift, but it's not always the gift that you're wanting. We don't always get, we don't get what we want, we get what we need. And that's part of the philosophy of everything's a gift. It's not looking at it as in, oh, it's a gift because I want it and that's what it means. It's just that it's what the universe is gifting you for a greater insight, or so that you can understand something more along the way, or align with what you need to align, which is exactly what we were just speaking about when we were speaking about your mother. Of course, it's not something that we would say, "Please, can I have that?" That's what I need. But then when you look at the tremendous growth and awareness and how much you've helped others on their path of healing through what you've been through and through what you've come to understand, and how it's changed your lineage through this opening up to spirit as well, that, you know, wasn't there previously for you personally. It's like, you're like, oh gosh, of course, if this is what it took for me to be here today, then I can accept it's a gift. Right.
And it's also that thing we were talking about around, you know, letting go, like humbling ourselves to let go of this idea that we know what's best for us, right? That we have an idea,
Exactly.
like, and letting go of those ideas that are put into our brains when we're so young and in school. And I think we were talking about this earlier, like, you know, around kind of just letting go of this preconceived idea of what I should be achieving in the world, or what is a gift, or, you know, basically like what is for me and what is not for me. And developing that faith. Like, it really comes down to faith, doesn't it? Like, that's how we can also have faith in the moment of like great hardship, that everything is for us. And it is, and it takes time, I think, particularly if you're someone like me, you know, doesn't come from that background of faith, that also it's like, okay, that's a great thing about reconsidering your life and looking back, and taking time to kind of go, oh, actually, if this hadn't happened, then this wouldn't have happened. Because it's true of everything. You cannot ever take anything out of your life and say, oh, I wish I didn't have that. I wish that hadn't happened. I wish that then nothing after that would have happened. Right? Like, there's just no way of knowing. You can't cherry pick your life's experiences. So if you want to remove anything from your life, then you say, well, then that would clear the slate of everything else. So so you've got to understand that everything is a gift in the unfolding of your life. And if you kind of think about that in a nuanced way, it's like, of course, because everything is your unfolding life, right? So it's like, of course, it's the gift of your life. This is the gift of your life. And to have that faith, really does make a massive shift in how you can then go forward.
You know, and it gives you immense strength walking with that philosophy, because it means that when something's in front of you, the despair that you would have in that moment of like seeing it, like, because if you don't have this way of thinking, and what I've noticed is that people compact negatively. So something happens and they immediately imagine that something else negative is going to happen, something else and something else, right? Like, they see how this can become their destruction. But when you have this philosophy, there's something that then happens that is it's not necessarily something that you're wanting, right? So it will appear like something negative, but instantly you're looking for a way of like, and your heart's open. Like, I can see I actually just sat up at that moment and opened my heart, because that's what happens, because you're like, oh, okay, well, obviously this is just redirecting me somewhere. This is just taking me somewhere I don't know. But that unknowing doesn't become a fear, it becomes a potential. That's the word. It becomes a potential of something, because you're like, oh, of course, because life isn't known. And sometimes we can get so stuck in that idea that we do know what's happening, and it takes for something to come along and be, to knock us off, for us to then
from our perceived
create something.
It's like, and then later you're like,
to bring something
to happen.
Exactly, something so much greater. And then you're like, okay, that's why that happened. I broke up with that person, or I lost that job, or whatever it be. And we can see that, like, and if you have this philosophy as well, when you'll see it in the smaller things, like literally, like, it sounds so tiny, but it's like things like where I had a bill and I had made a contract, and then they overcharged me, and then I call up, right? And then because they've overcharged me, and then I've called up and saying, like, look, and they're like, oh no, the contract got cancelled by the customer service person. Now they've reinstated the contract, but it's £10 cheaper. So now for the next 24 months, I've got the same thing for £10 cheaper. And it's like, the point is that's like the small things in life that I could have been irritated and been like, oh my God, I can't believe the customer service person. Do you know what I mean? And like, but in that moment, it's like, okay, so okay, great. Let me, and it actually had a beautiful conversation with the lady, and she was like, oh my God, it's so lovely to speak to you. And like, yes, I'm going to make sure I get you this and get you that. And it's like, great. And that happened like literally 2 days ago, right? That's why it's so in my mind now. And it's like that thing of like, yeah, of course, that's the little things in life we can see it in, and the big things in life,
Totally.
you know.
And it's a great, like, it's actually, I know it's not the point in the podcast where we do the exercise, but it is like a, let me just infiltrate by saying, this is a great exercise for you to do. It's a bonus exercise for you to go, to take time to look back on your life, and particularly those moments that you think of as like great tragedies or things going wrong, quote unquote, and look at what happened after them and see if you can find the gift. And it's okay if you can't. That's also okay. But I guarantee that if you look at it, you will be able to. And then, like what you were talking about, is it's kind of like, then it can also become a game in your daily. So it's great to look back at the past and also on a daily level. And it is just about shifting the perspective. You know, it's like a big one for me has been like, oh, when you're not feeling well, like the gift is that you have to slow down. You know, it's like not being frustrated with the body when it's slowing you or preventing you from doing things, but realizing, oh, okay, I clearly needed to have more rest, right? Or even, you know, like, and sometimes you'll never know the gift. You know, like some things are really difficult. Like I remember, I mean, and this isn't even such a big thing because materials are materials, but like I had my handbag stolen off the beach with all my stuff in it, and it had loads of sentimental stuff as well, and it had my car keys in it, you know, so it was, you know, it was just also huge amounts of hours of administration to get, you know, what it's like, all the documents back and everything, and just like lots of costs of things that, just like not fun, and me running around the streets without my clothes and without being able to get home, and you know, but like on the one hand it meant that I had to rely on asking people for help, and then I was really shown the kindness of humanity and the fact that a lady drove me home wet in her car to jump over the wall, and she was there and helped me to get into the house, and you know, that was one thing. But also you kind of think, well, actually maybe I'll never know what the gift is. Maybe if I'd have got in my car, something awful was going to happen and I was being saved from a crash. Or, do you know what I mean? Like, that's what I was thinking on the way back. I was like, well, I just don't know what the gift is necessarily, and it's okay. But it's a gift.
And also, like, I mean, because I had a, I'm going to say this because I had a situation that brought this thought, right? That's similar to that, but also this sense of naivety that actually, you know, you left your purse on the beach, that you didn't, you know, you're thinking everybody's like, no, nobody's going to steal it. That's not a thought in your mind as well, right? Like, and so there you go, and obviously there it gets stolen. And it's just showing you that obviously, actually, that's a possibility. Like, you know, actually wake up to the world as well. We're not just living in this, you know, rainbow coloured world where things don't get taken. We're not naive at it, because otherwise, how can we be compassionate to other people and sit with them and empathise if we're out here saying, no, the world is just like flowery.
Rainbow unicorn.
And
I say that because I had a journey once, a mushroom journey, where it was like everything, I couldn't see anything that was going on because there was just this rainbow unicorn filter over everything. I was like, it was really weird. It's like I couldn't see because, and I was like, oh, I get it. Like it was showing me that
it's like this.
Sometimes I'll just put the rainbow, and it was kind of saying, it's fine, you can have the rainbow unicorn filter on life if you like, Tārā, but just know that that's what you're doing, and it's going to obscure you from seeing the truth sometimes. You know?
Yeah. And the thing is, it's not an honest perspective, right? Like, because actually, well, not when it comes to then communicating with other people about real life, because they're just going to get frustrated with you. Like, no, life is not like that. You can't just leave your purse on and somebody isn't going to take it. There's people out here that are in desperate need. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, we're not saying that they're mean either. I mean, we don't know what people's thoughts are, but the point is that they can be in desperate need why they need that. Do you know what I mean? So are you prepared? You know, it's just also just giving you more awareness. Like, are you prepared to lose that? Because someone out here, they can't eat, and when they see that as food. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
you know, it's so it's just opening up your, just enabling you to conversate more openly and honestly with people by knowing life more fully, right? Like, that's, as I say, I had a similar experience of being naive and that coming back to me. right? Like, naive, that's not the way either. So it's like, that is a gift. Thank you. And I mean, I do feel like that, because I'm like, oh, thank you, universe, for reminding me that naivety is not the one.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Well, what's interesting is that there might be people listening that think that what we're talking about in terms of everything being a gift is also a naive thing to believe, right? So that's also interesting, because I mean, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying as well. I'm just saying that, and so just to also make the clarity of the difference of a kind of faith as well, like having that faith that that we're living in a benevolent universe is something that you can never really know in truth, right? It's a belief that we've adopted, that we share, that we're now plugging on this podcast. And faith's an interesting one, like having come from an upbringing of not having had faith, really. It's something that's really had to grow. And so I also just want to appeal to those people that are like, yeah, whatever, everything's a gift. Just to don't take our word for it as well. Like, try it on for size. It's something to play with. Because as we've been talking about a lot in this podcast already, like, we do create our own realities as well. So as much as, and again, the universal paradox, which also relates to what you were saying, is that, you can't necessarily, we create our own realities. And everyone's absolutely lovely and wonderful. Yes, and everyone's in their own creation of their own realities as well. Like, it's this universal paradox. We are it all, but we're also separate. Constantly coming back to this. And so it's holding it all. And but faith is faith is a journey. What can I say? And it's something to really to try on. And like I said, the exercise of going back through your life and looking at it, and but also, like we were saying about, like, what works for you. Because as we know as well from that attraction, from the laws of causality and attraction, and as above, so below, and as within, so without, with the hermetic principles, like what we're putting out, we're also receiving as well. So if we're living in the belief of everything being a gift, then it also just raises our vibration as well. So it does kind of come full circle, but also don't take our word for it. Have that experience, and faith, like I say, it's something that comes can come. I mean, sometimes for some people it comes fast because they have these these magical, mystical experiences. Working with psychedelics can also increase faith in certain ways, because, like I've said before, for me, it's like, magic does exist. Like, it gives you the insight into this other world as well, or this deeper connection to the unconscious. But also, I think what's really important in terms of faith is also, like, really trusting your direct experiences and really learning to your body as well. Like, those direct sensory experiences are ways that we can, like, through really deep listening, really, really connect to spirit and really listen to what the universe is telling us and find that faith.
So. Yeah, and I think, I was going to say, though, and I also think, just to second that as well, is that what we notice in ourselves is that when we're coherent within ourselves, that we feel more well as well. So having coherent ideas, right, like, actually it helps us to to feel well in life. And and we go, I mean, this is actually, we've spoken about during the series of this podcast so many things that actually align with the idea that the universe is benevolent and that is working for us. And, like, even down to the water experiments and things like that, and how things crystallize. And, so these are like full ideas. They're not small ideas. And gifts aren't always, I mean, people can give you gifts and you might not want that gift. So a gift doesn't mean a good thing. Like, like, let's not,
don't like,
you'd be like, no, I didn't want that. So even that, taking that as a good or bad thing, will then make you see it in a way that, like, you'll be like, no, but that's not true. But you have to understand that we're just saying it's for you, right? And everything is for you, right? And when we say for you, we say for your awareness, so that you can become more aware fully of who you are and what it is that you're truly desiring at a core heart level. Like, it's not about something even that's away from you. It's actually just really connecting with you inside. A lot of people are living from the idea of themselves. That's why they're incoherent and unable to really understand the gift. And, so they may reject this, but then we're inviting you to go deeper within. And I mean, as you say, like, even with meditation, and I say even with, what I mean is you don't need anything outside yourself. to have these mystical experiences as well that connect you with this universe and show you yourself. So knowing thyself is the gift that the universe wants you to have. If you're there saying, that's not what I want, then you may never believe what,
That it's a gift.
you
Yeah.
may, you're probably not even listening to this podcast if that's the case, you're like, turn it off. But if you are out there and you are believing that it's know thyself, then you're gonna be like, okay, I get that. Yes, of course, I see how it's working and how every present moment is present for me to understand that further.
And to listen to the, like, be it in meditation or just in the everyday as well, which obviously we've also talked about can hopefully become more and more of a meditation, i.e. more and more of a presence in the moment and more of a deep listening. It's listening to the signs that come through the body, but also in other ways. Like, I don't know if we've really talked about this much, but like the more we open ourselves to the signs that are shown to us in nature as well. And it's really important to develop your own system of symbols and signs as well. Like, what do they mean for you? There's a lot of stuff out there as well now, like about, and it can be fun, I think, also, like, oh, what does this number mean? Or what does that thing mean? But like, again, try not to give your power away too much and because the more energy you personally put into it is the more real it will be as well. Right? Like, so for example, I work a lot with animals. But I've also developed like my own understanding of what each of those animals means and their symbolism. And that's come through also listening to the animals, right? But also working with my own unconscious, my dreams. Like, what does that mean for me? And the more I can define that, the more then I can understand it. And the more the universe can then communicate with me, right? So now I know when I see white butterflies, that means spirit's present, and spirit's always present, but it's like an affirmation, I know that my belches that I have, and this is like an African thing as well, that's the ancestors talking. So I see that as an information from the ancestors. It comes forth quite a lot. I know that I've got many different animal guides that I work with in ceremony, and I'm affirming those connections when I work more and more with them in ceremony. And let me just say that ceremony doesn't have to be with any kind of, ceremony is sound journey, for example, or just sitting and meditating with a candle as well. But that those then have their own symbolism that then they can be reflected back to me, because in the creation of the universe, through my own experience, that's how I then am talking to my higher self, as it were. If that makes sense. So yeah.
Yeah, and you remind me as well. So it's like the father, my children's father, like when we were younger and we first met, and we were there and we were speaking before we had children, right? And he'd like, he asked me a question. I can't quite remember the question, right? And no, he never asked me a question. He asked himself a question. He asked his higher self a question. And in that moment, we were talking and we were just in a conversation. I stopped and I went, and I said, oh, I don't know. I just feel like I've got to say to you, like, I would never hurt you. Right. And it came out of the blue. It wasn't, in that moment or something. I think that's something similar like that. I can't quite remember. Actually, I can't quite remember the ins and outs of the conversation, but I remember him saying after, in that moment, he went, you know what was so strange about whatever I said, right, was I'd asked that question to my higher self and the answer came back through you. Yeah. And he hadn't actually asked me the question. Yeah, I'd interrupted. Right. Yeah. To actually say that. And I mean, he has that experience, not just in that moment. It's just that's the moment that we were sharing that very first time. But, that same experience that he often talks about, like that actually he'll ask the universe a question and somebody will respond to him with that question. And
that's exactly that completely affirms, the thing that I'm learning more and more, which is like faith is a two-way street as well. Like, the more faith that you put into the universe, which is essentially the more faith you're putting into yourself and your higher self and your magic potential and your magic, take out the potential, like the more you put in, the more you get out. As above, so below, as within, so without, right? So the more you trust and the more faith you have, the more faith the universe is going to have in you, basically, and the more you're going to receive.
We can even say the more aware you are is the more aware you are.
Yeah.
It's also that, do you know what I mean? So it's not even just because obviously the magic's always there, whether you're believing in it or not. It's always happening. But the more aware you become of the magic is the more you notice it, right? So yeah. And
and it's funny because
and of course
kids often will have these deeply spiritual connections, right? They'll see their guides, they'll speak to spirit, they have these very open connections, and then that can be shut down often by adults or by the kind of rational over culture or whatever. But also people lose faith often when bad things happen, you know, like let me say in quote unquote bad things happen, you know, when they feel like they've been betrayed because something that wasn't in alignment with what they thought the right thing is, you know, or a good thing, then they're like, oh, well, then, you know, we can't be living in this magical universe, or I can't have faith, or God isn't real, or da 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 da, if this can happen to me, or this can happen to my family, right?
Yeah, even the word magic had such a bad connotation.
Yeah.
Like I remember like someone coming around, there was a book on the side that said like something like, I don't know, the words are magic. I can't quite my memory, right? But something like words are magic, and like, you know, and he was like, oh no, like,
well, that goes back to the witch
rejecting
trials, doesn't it? And
rejecting the book because of magic. And I've heard that so much. Like even a friend I have who's religious, and she'll be like, oh no, not magic. And I'm like, magic isn't bad. Like, where's this, you know, these ideas aren't your ideas.
Well, that's where
they've been fed
the dogma of religion, and like, just again to caveat that we're not against you know, the essence of all religion is beautiful spiritual texts and deities and prophets, and you know, there's huge divinity within all of them, and yet the way people have manipulated, and I mean that's the whole Inquisition and the witch trials that led to the shutting down of the ideas of magic, and and the genocide of all of our wise women in Europe by the Crusades, by the Roman Catholics. I mean, that's where we lost that connection to magic. And then that's been emulated again, like I was saying, with children and stuff, you know, still, because the overculture is still influenced by that, right? So then it stops us from being in that connection to our faith in ourselves, you know, finding that divinity within.
And of course,
essentially.
Because that's how you're able to control us. Because if we're just living in a logical world and we're, you know, we're not receiving and being guided by,
to use the Harry Potter term,
then it becomes easy to control our minds, because what's the point? You know, like we have no power.
And also because you know me, I'm always on an anti-us and them narrative, because I really feel like we are all one, right? So it's also important to claim our power back, and we've given our way to that as well. We've created this system, you know, so that also empowers us to be able to take it back. Do you know what I mean? It's not about fighting that outside of ourselves that has taken something. It's about us reclaiming it within ourselves, right?
It's still a fear system is the point. So we're not saying that, of course, it's still a fear system and we still have fear, and that, you know, so, you know, even in ourselves in this conversation now, it's like, why is it so hard for some people to have faith? Well, it's fear. It's fear that if I have faith, I'll be living in a naive reality of the world, and actually I should be out there making things happen and doing things, or seeing things different, or, you know, just being more productive in whatever I'm doing. Whereas faith, the idea is, oh, but if I have faith, everything's going right. Maybe then it's going to come and slap me in the face. Whereas we're actually saying, no. Faith is your divine right to surrender your will to something higher and to align with it. And actually you find that through your heart. It's not through anything else. And your heart is the most powerful point of who you are.
And
that's
I even
what you
want to
came
say,
to experience and express.
That wording and say something greater or something, because higher also implies like outside of self. And I just want to say it's in your heart, like you said, like, do you know what I mean? Like that it's about surrender to something more magical, something bigger, something more expansive, right? Like,
yeah, and we say the higher self as in, because obviously when we're talking about the lower self, we're also talking about energetically, right? Like in, you know, where we haven't raised up that energy and we're not fully living from the whole self. We're living from, you know, just
the fear self, like you were
reactively.
saying. Yeah.
So when we, so when we say higher self, we mean, you know, from the full awareness, like, you know, so actually alive and awakened self.
So it does become about also being able to, in that, as you say, like surrendering, like to trust your individual path and let your individual path play itself out, you know, letting go of this idea that things are going wrong or something's bad, or being able to really And I think, related to everything that we've been saying, one of the biggest fears that people have, or one of the reasons they might let go of faith or think that we're living in a malevolent universe rather than benevolent, is death. Like, we've been also schooled, I will say, into this deep fear of death. And yet I would like to put forward the proposal that, in fact, death is the ultimate gift, in terms of everything being a gift, that, in fact, both that it is the ultimate gift and also that it's the ultimate lie. That it's the ultimate gift because we will return to the oneness, to the wholeness, to the divine feeling of being united, as we spoke about briefly in the Journey of Souls book. That's how it's described, that it just feels so yummy and whole and like you're held in the most amazing way. And although you will surrender this body complex that is, for example, Tārā or Isabel, and that will not return, your spirit and your soul lives on and will reincarnate many times. But even in the reason why I say it's the ultimate lie, I mean, you could just say that, but also, well, I guess it's the same but different. I remember we were doing a journey in a forest once, and there was this beautiful big tree that had been felled or had fallen. And so it looked normally as if it were, quote unquote, dead, right? And I was walking on it, and I was sitting on it, and I was looking, and I've had a bit of mushrooms, and the whole thing was energetically resonating. So if you haven't had mushroom experiences before, then you won't necessarily know what I'm talking about. But if you have, and not just mushroom psychedelics or even like really connected moments, you can often see the energy lines. You can see the resonance and the vibration of the universe, and you can see all the lines that interconnect all of these. You can see that everything that is not separate and it's connected. And this tree, of course, it wasn't like there was a void there. It wasn't like it didn't exist anymore. It's all part of this interconnected energy, and it was breathing. It was, quote unquote, alive, even though ostensibly we would call it a dead tree in English in that understanding. And it was really showing me that, of course it's not dead. Because also it's an entire universe, in fact, this tree, for so many different life forms as well. There's hundreds of creatures in here that are feeding on it and living in it, and microbes and like moss and lichen and all of these amazing things. And it's like a whole world of life and activity. And okay, the tree that was rooted and that was creating oxygen, in the way that we would know a tree with its green leaves isn't alive anymore. That's true. But again, it's that trickster separation of language that we have, right? It's like, actually, it's still alive in a different form. It's just transformed. Energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed. And so the same thing happens when we, quote unquote, die. It's not it's the polarity thing. It's not a boom there. Also having seen people die, it's like, it's not just a lights on, lights off situation. Like, it's a whole journey. And the soul, you can witness the soul leaving. The body, it takes time as well. The body goes through many stages. And as I always said to my daughter when we buried my mum, like, there's a beautiful tree over her grave, and that body then feeds that tree, if you allow for somewhat of a natural burial. And she lives on. Like, I also always told her she lives on in the moon, like, because many, there's many different ways that energy is then transformed.
Yeah. I mean, just having that thought that so many people have means it just blocks them in so many ways from even being able to. There's people that I can't even conversate with because of their fear of death. Doesn't even allow them to think, like, and talk about these things. And I remember as well when on our first, the first ever journey you and I did, that like 5 gram journey. And because I've had this philosophy that somehow I was just gifted with, that I wasn't afraid of death, right? So I was like, no, it's just what it is. We go. And maybe because my dad died when I was 11,
that could have gone
maybe
either
I really
way, to be
had
honest.
somehow integrated that
could have
idea.
gone either way, though, to be honest. It could have made you very afraid of death.
Yeah, but maybe I without
Mm.
thinking, I integrated the idea is the point. So actually, for myself, I don't have a fear, and my kids are always like, they're like, yes, because I could go at any minute. Because it allows me. That's why, really, actually, because it allows me to live so presently in the moment, which is even why they know that they've been schooled in the
Mm.
idea of this is our moment to really be. And so death has brought so much life to me. That idea, and that
Yeah, that's what
idea
the
of having
shamans
death
say.
as
You
your
can just have
advisor.
death on your
But
left shoulder as your advisor, and it's so true.
yeah. And so in this journey, I'm going through it anyway, and it's death. So there's this death happening, my death, right? Like it's going in the darkness. And I was like, and I remember this fear coming up. I didn't even know that I had this, right? And this fear coming up, and I was like, oh no, but I'm not scared of
Mm.
death. That's what came second. And then passing through this portal, and then, there I was in the journey. But, so I'm just saying, like, it just having just that understanding, that opening, it just means that you're now more open to the universe. And so it's something that, if you haven't worked with those concepts, it's something that will help free you to actually just really sit with those ideas. And what is it for you to pass? And what does that mean for you now? That you may pass tomorrow. And how does that change the way that you now perceive today? And immediately to me, it says, but then today becomes even more of a gift, regardless of what's going on, right? Like, because it may not be here tomorrow. So, so I invite you to think about, death and what would it mean? What if you were to die? How would that impact your today? How would that change things?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's what they always say, isn't it? Like, what if today was your last day? And I used to hate that question because I'd be like, well, obviously you do things that you would never do if it was really your last day, And I guess it's like but that even that in itself is quite telling because it's like, well, why aren't you doing those things every day? And sometimes you think, oh yeah, well, I'd go out and take loads of drugs, or that's me when I was a teenager, and that's obviously, and I realize that's not sustainable to not do that every day. But it's like that in
Mm.
itself is a really unhealed thought, isn't it? That that's what you would do. It's like really, if yeah, or like
You're making the
go
point that we were making earlier, which of course that comes from the head, doesn't it? Those thoughts as well. That's
on.
just showing you that you're not in your true. You weren't in your true awareness. You weren't in your heart,
Mm,
because in your heart it would be so much more complete. It would involve
mm,
you and everybody else in the world, and just
mm,
a whole legacy. It'd be like,
mm,
that's what I want to do today. I want to live my
mm,
legacy.
mm,
Whereas from a reactive point of view, like, oh, I would just be hedonistic, I'll just go out
mm,
and do,
mm, mm, mm.
and so that's and that's why, well, this
Well,
is
and
why
even
we
like
do all
small
this work.
things, right? It's about like spending time with loved ones. I think that's a big one, right? They say
Mm,
people on their deathbed are like, oh, I wish I'd spent more time with people I love. I wish I'd, there's that
yeah,
thing of
no
what
one.
does everyone wish for? Like, I wish I'd been kinder to myself,
Yeah,
and I wish I'd followed my dreams more. They're kind of, I think, the main ones I'm
right,
remembering.
no
But
one
it's
ever
things around
says,
that. Yeah.
um like they were saying, like, no one ever says, oh, I wish I made more money,
No.
but they spend so much of their life thinking that this was, this is life, right? Like,
Mm. Mm. Yeah, and it
mm,
really does. Like I always say, I mean, and that's why I'm now being guided to work more with death and to help hold people through death. Because I really, and so I'm doing a lot of research into it, but um, it really does help to develop, like it helps us in life. In a way, it's almost too late when you get to the end, but it helps us in life to really develop a healthy relationship. And we used to, in our more ancient cultures, have a much healthier relationship with death. And it used to be like this big farewell party of like, oh, see you on the other side, and like a celebration of everything that has been in this life, but not like oh, you're leaving us forever and going into some unknown land, right? As well. But it is
mm,
this, but the beauty, they say that until you embrace death, you can't embrace your life. And the reason I think that they also say that is because it helps us to understand the sanctity of time. Like we are, even though time doesn't really exist in the way that we often perceive it to. And again, I think we've got a whole podcast episode at some point coming up about that. But in this 3D reality, again, it's one of those beautiful paradoxes of this world. Time is finite. We do have a set amount of years on this planet. We are here for this
mm,
time, and it makes it precious. That's the thing. It's not to be afraid, but it's to understand the preciousness. Because actually, if every day was eternal, then it would make you live differently, right? Like, whereas if we
Totally.
can
Yeah,
really
yeah.
embrace the knowing that we are here but for a fleeting second in the life of the planet, right? Like, and that's not to make you afraid, but just to allow you to really embrace this very short, actually, in reality, dance that we have here, and to live every day fully.
And also that idea, just to back that, which is like that you were needed here as well, that, you were required to be here, so as much as it's like a quick affair, right? Like you say, it's a fleeting experience, but a necessary one. And that can also make us feel like what a gift we are, like that, our presence here on this earth as well. Like we've been chosen, and how like so easily we could have not been here, right? Like, I think we just forget these things. I think when we look at it that way, we're like, of course, just our presence is a gift, let alone what's happening in our lives as well. So.
And and ultimately, again, to go back to paradox, my favorite word, that then it's that knowing in the embrace of death and what it truly means, that this is a fleeting and precious moment that we're living, and simultaneously we'll be back in a different form, but in a different way, and that also time is eternal, and therefore, it's nothing to fear.
Yeah.
And thus we can, like, all of these things are just helping us to realign with the understanding that everything is a gift, even our own death.
And all of these things just help us to live every moment from a place of gratitude. And that is just good for your health. Actually, when you're in gratitude, your cells are just more buoyant and happy and alive in that as well. Like,
They say it's one
love,
of the
which
highest
is
vibrations, isn't it?
right.
Gratitude.
Love and gratitude are a similar vibration in their own right, because obviously when you're in gratitude, you're in love, right? And that heals the body, that heals the soul, so this isn't just something, just to be, grateful or just, just see it as a gift and there's nothing. No, this is actually what your whole self is asking for you in order for you to be able to, and just in that way, like, you're going to hear the birds sing, you're going to see the sunsets, you're going to be more awake to the world when you're moving from this point of view, because everything then becomes this wonder moment, full of wonder, but when we're stuck in this idea that life is against us and we're in that small, generally we're looking down, we're in our feelings and internalizing life, thinking we know it already, so we're already like, we're in anxiety because we're creating the future in a way we don't want, we're in the past, and we're not here in the moment, we're not in the present, and that's just not what we came for.
And I think, thinking about like gratitude, it's also like gratitude isn't this like a sort of old school idea of humble kind of thing, like you must be grateful even for the pain. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's sometimes how I saw it. But like you say, it's like it's really raising the vibration of every cell in your body. It's like it's a more expansive and enjoyable feeling to be grateful, just to be in a sense of acceptance and knowing that it's for you. And it's also that thing of, it's a chicken and egg thing again, right? Where it's also the law of attraction, the law of causality as well. And it's like, if we're in that higher vibration, then what are we going to be attracting as well? And what are we going to be creating when we're in that sense of like, wow, thank you for all of this. Thanks for the beauty of and the wonder of this world. And the more, like you say, you open your eyes to that which there is to be grateful for,
And
and
if we look at,
the easier it is also to expand into that gratitude for the darkness, which isn't easy. I'm not saying that's an easy thing. And it's also not this fake idea of like, and then when things that are horrible are happening to me, and when I say horrible, painful, I suppose is the word, that I'm just going to be smiling through it like a psychopath. Like, sorry, it's not a very PC word, but like that's not the idea either. It's just to know somewhere in the background as that observer of your pain and of your suffering that this is a hard, bitter pill to swallow, a hard gift. Like if you think about the bitter pill as being medicine, a hard gift to receive, but it is a gift I receive.
And if you, I was just going to say as well, just because the word grateful as well, full of grateful, right? Like, so you can actually see that that's how you're experiencing the world, from that vibration. You're, that's happening within you. You're full of great. It's not just an idea coming from the head as well. So, and as you say, that's why it's raising our vibration. That's why it's enabling us to just attract more of what we are. Right, because that's what we are, is full of great. We are wonderful, we are full of wonder, like when we're in our knowing and in our highest, in our hearts, which places us in our higher selves as well. And
also when you ask for things from the universe, there is the universal law of ask and you shall receive, right? And people often are like, oh, but I've been asking for a Mercedes for years and it doesn't, classic or whatever. But it's like, because the universe doesn't work with words so much as vibration, right? Like, it's like, what's the energy? So if you are working from a place of gratitude, and also if you are, because again, time doesn't really exist in the way we think it does. If you work from the energy of having already received it, how does it feel to really receive that thing that you desire? How are you vibrating in the energy of gratitude for something? It brings it closer to you, simply in those feelings. Like, you're already experiencing those feelings of having received, right? Part of the time,
exactly.
You don't even need to then receive the thing you think you needed, because you've already received the feelings, which is really what you're looking for, right? That's again one of the paradoxes.
Yeah, it's the experience. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have to just say, it's okay. Like, please don't beat yourselves up if you're not sitting there feeling like everything's a gift. I just have to keep reiterating that, because it can all seem a bit far-fetched sometimes when you're in a really difficult space. I've been talking about this for a while, so but just before we sign off, I just wanted to also talk about the Toltec 4 agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz, who is a Toltec shaman, and I find that these agreements are a really beautiful way to also help manifest this feeling of gratitude, this feeling of things being a gift, this to kind of, what's the word, to navigate oneself in the world with these. And this is my paraphrasing of them. Sorry, Miguel. I mean, the essence is definitely right. And so 1 is always be impeccable with your word. 2 is don't take things personally. Don't take anything personally. 3 is don't assume anything. And 4 is always do your best. So just to clarify, to always be impeccable with your word, which is be authentic and truthful within yourself. And I think what's really important within that to clarify is that it's one thing in terms of, oh, I don't lie, I don't, I always do the truth, but it's like there's shades of truth and impeccability, right? There's different angles, but also mainly it's about how you're talking to yourself. How, and those words, not necessarily the spoken ones, but the unspoken ones, and how they are coming through to you. Don't take anything personally is amazing. Really, always question, because we're always taking things personally and thinking that other things are about us, and they're really not. And if you can really honor that, it can really shift you out of victim mentality. And coupled with that is to not assume anything, good or bad, quote unquote. Don't assume that anything is good, like we were saying. Don't assume that anything is bad. Don't assume, that anything should happen to you. Don't assume that anything shouldn't happen to you. Don't assume that what anyone else is thinking, or that certain behavior implies certain ways of thinking, right? So it also leads you to then ask more questions. And always do your best, I think, is mainly when the unpacks it related to in those 3 first things. Always do your best in that impeccability and not taking things personally or making assumptions, because that's why they're also called agreements, not laws, because it's also like an ongoing journey, and it's not something then to to kind of chastise yourself about when you don't, because these are all things that we all struggle with. And even just having an awareness of these things going forward, just kind of watch yourself, like the shaman always say that they're stalking themselves, stalking their shadow. And that's just that awareness that we keep talking about as well. And in coming into that awareness of these things, and we can see where we're giving our power away, where we're draining energy from ourselves, and where we can come into a greater feeling of gratitude, not through kind of trying to force it, but just realizing where we're kind of subconsciously being in the opposite of gratitude, being in a sort of low vibration awareness, being in judgment, being in lack, which is actually blocking us from being in a space of really knowing ourselves. I mean, I feel like we could do a whole episode on these agreements, actually. So I feel like I just opened a can of worms towards the end of an episode. So before I go into a 5-hour monologue, I'm going to cut it. And I really recommend you reading the book, and I'll put a link to the book in the show notes as well. And again, apologies, Don Miguel, if I bastardized your beautiful, beautiful agreements, but I think I got the essence. And it's an encouragement to go read the book. And I think there's lots of stuff online about it as well. Anything to add before we sign off is?
Wow, no, I mean, other than thank you for every single listener and being such a gift to us, because that's, you lot are definitely a gift. And and it's just a great, it's just a great idea to always have close to you as well, and it's a constant work in progress as well. So as you say, just
and we hope you can enjoy it as much as we've enjoyed it, and be kind to yourselves in the becoming of it. Sending you all so much love. Thank you for listening. Thank you. And stay tuned for the meditation.
Hi, gorgeous ones. This is the coaching conversation for the episode Everything is a Gift. And today I'll be coaching Tārā once again.
Lucky me.
And we're going to be looking at what we're still having problems integrating as a gift, okay? And talking through that. Okay, so Tārā.
I've been coached so well by you for over 10 years now. I actually really struggle to think of what I don't. It's not that I always think of everything as a gift immediately, but I've just got into the habit, and I'm not, and I just want to share that actually it's not something that's happened overnight at all. It's been a real process of learning to embed that understanding of everything being a gift. And from the tiniest things, so and I've noticed in my life recently, even the practice of, little frustrations, even if you forgot the keys, or today the Uber came to the wrong place and it was around the corner, and normally I'd be like, oh, annoying, but then I was like, oh, obviously I just needed to walk that little bit, or oh, obviously I needed to spend another 5 minutes in the house, otherwise something weird was going to happen on the road. Or do you know what I mean? Constantly just allowing myself to believe that everything is just going for me the whole time, and it's just been it's such a beautiful, beautiful practice. I just want to just share that. And then I think, so the things that I sometimes still struggle, I guess, to remember are gifts. She said, conceding that she's not fully healed already, obviously. And yeah, there's two, but I suppose we just do one. One of the ones that I guess is most prevalent at the moment would be around my body. That obviously a lot of the work I'm doing around it is understanding that it is a gift, but sometimes I struggle to understand how, being in so much pain, and so incapacitated can be a gift, because I want to be embodied and be in my flow and be, walking out in nature and talking to the plants and swimming in the sea and, like breathing and healthy and all of these kind of things. And I'm like doing less and less, like, and yeah, and then I've ended up like picking up weight, and that's really, it feels like my body is kind of getting worse and worse, not better and better.
Mm.
The more that I'm listening to it and the more I'm working with it, it's almost like, and I understand that it's because I haven't listened to it for so long. And I've been like focused on my mind and overvaluing my mind and undervaluing my body in terms of what I listen to and how I work. And that this is, I mean, I'm kind of doing your job for you, sorry, as well, but this is because
No, no,
I'm
no,
just
no,
sharing
no,
my
no, carry on. No,
processing,
no,
which
no,
is
this
just
is
that,
great.
like,
This is
that
exactly what
this
we need
is
to hear.
the gift. Yeah. So I'm understand, like, that is why I know it is a gift. I know that the gift is that to learn to listen to my body, and that
Mm.
until I listen, like, it's like it had to shout this loudly in order for me to listen. So that's the gift. The gift of the pain in my body is the gift of having to listen and to learn really to listen, and not just sort of surface level listening, but like I'm really, having to learn to listen. But where it's like, sometimes it gets difficult, I guess, is that when I'm in pain, but also like when I'm like, but I am listening and I'm doing so much more. Like, I am having physical therapies and I am doing less. I mean, I've stopped doing yoga and I've stopped doing crazy back bends and I've stopped doing capoeira and I've stopped surfing and I've stopped, you know what I mean? And it's like, I just want to be able to do some gentle stretching and go for a walk. And now that's also hurting. Do you know what I mean? And you're just like, oh my God. And then obviously because I'm not exercising, then I get depressed and I put on weight, and then I want to eat more. And then, and it's just like, oh God, that's a bit of a spiral. And that then sometimes
Mm.
doesn't feel like a gift. Like I struggle. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, and, I mean, gosh, and from the outside, we can all see that there's, like, plenty of reasons why you would be feeling, um, frustrated in that. But, let's also look at then, like, because you've obviously named, like, loads of things that because your body is speaking to you, and obviously it wants to help you, right? It wants to help you to shine brighter, and it wants to help you to be more aligned. And obviously your body's understanding that the way that you had previously been working with yourself must have been like really harsh. You must have, like, I mean, well, I'm sure that you could attest to that you've obviously been pushing rather than allowing, right? This is why
Yeah.
the
Well, I guess
body's
that's also the gift, is that you don't think, like, there's this kind of weird self-gaslighting that happens, if that's even really a term, but where you kind of
Mm,
feel like you're like, no, I'm not really that harsh on myself. Do you know what I mean? Like, actually, I'm quite
exactly.
lazy. Like,
Mm.
actually, I, I mean, I'm my own boss. I don't have to, I don't have to get out of bed at 6 o'clock every morning and go and work in a factory and feed 5 children. And do you know what I mean? It's like,
Mm.
I'm privileged in life. I get to, do amazing ceremonies and sound journeys and, fly around the world and well, like make theatre or create embodied healing practices. And do you know what I mean? It's like I'm lucky, and I have a body awareness, and I did it, like, so I'm not being harsh on myself. Like, I'm not, I'm not really, people think that I'm really busy because they see me in that way, but actually that's not true. Do you know what I mean? Like, that you tell yourself that. So I guess that's also the gift, because it's like the body that can't lie. That's what you have to learn as well, right? Like, it's
Mm.
showing me that it's like, it's not lying. It's not pretending to be sore. It's not pretending to be
Unhappy.
tired or angry. Yeah, it just is.
Mm. Yeah.
So you have to listen.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's the contradiction, right? Like, oh, I'm living the dream, but the dream was never to be in pain, right? So it's like, oh, okay. Well,
No.
I'm living the idea of the dream, right? But I'm not allowing myself to, because I suppose what's coming up for me then is maybe like if we look into that, I'm like, do you feel that you deserve to live a life where there's flow and ease, and that it's all like that you're living this life of joy with ease? Like, is that something that how do you feel about that?
Don't know. I guess there is quite a lot of guilt that I've had to work through around, or that I'm still maybe working through around being having that level of privilege in my life. Yeah, and maybe also that inherited ideas around having to work hard, that life's hard and you have to work hard, and that's and what that looks like. Having had a mum who kind of left the house by 6 o'clock and came back after 7, as a teacher, and was working weekends, and constantly overgiving at home,
Right.
and in work.
So, so if we can understand that, then that actually, even though your life is aligned with the ideas of what you believe are joyful, maybe the doing of those ideas, like the thoughts around that, are not joyful, right? Like they're as you say, like there's that guilt. So which means that, even when you're doing the work, you may be doing it in more tension than relax, because there's contradiction there, right? So, I suppose in that they'd be like, well, what would it look like? What would have to change, right? What would have to change around that, right? So now imagine that you're doing something that you love. Like, I know that you have lovers, for instance, when you do your lovers, and you love doing that, and I
You
know
have to
you love
explain what
doing
that means to people. I have lovers. It makes it sound like I have lots of people that
that.
I mean, I wish I had lovers.
Oh, sorry, apologies.
Open for business. No jokes.
Sorry, you have your lover event. Obviously, the lover event that you have, and it's something that you enjoy doing.
Yeah. Which is a sacred psychedelic dance night for those of you that haven't already attended one of our lover events.
Right. And but if you're now doing that, and inside, you can have this great experience, but inside you're like, oh no, I've got to be this, and I've got to do that, and I've got to do that, then it's not going to be the same experience, right? As if you're there and you're like, oh, I'm really in love in this moment, and
Trusting.
allowing it to be what it is, exactly, right?
Trust
So
is
the
what
point
comes
is,
up for me.
right. So it's not about what you're doing. And that's the thing. That's what your body's like saying to you, right? It's saying, you need to relax in the doing. And so until
That's
you're
the gift. Yeah.
right, until you're relaxed in the doing, then there's no point doing. Even if you think you love it, it's not going to be in love. It's going to be in pain. So
I mean, that came up for me actually in
mm,
ceremony this last weekend when I was doing ceremony. And as you know, but for the listeners' sake, for me, in something, because the mushrooms are obviously revealing our shadow to us all the time and showing us what is there, because they're the mirror. They're always the spiegel, as the Xhosas say, like the mirror. And so for me, in spite of having had continually like overwhelmingly beautiful feedback, and I don't say that to blow my own trumpet, I just say it because it's the truth. I couldn't be more grateful for the feedback that I receive after every ceremony about the way that I'm holding space and the music that I'm creating and the way that I'm holding those overnight ceremonies. Yet during every ceremony I have this the shadow that's shown to me is the imposter syndrome. It's like, and I get this voice in my head that's like, oh, everyone hates the music. Everyone wishes that you'd shut up. are you even valid in holding these spaces? You don't come from a lineage of medicine women, and you don't have this, da, 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 and it's like, and it's been like a really long process of learning to separate like truth with a capital T from like, oh, this is the mushroom showing me my shadow. It's showing me that this is the vibration that I'm sitting in, and the harder that people are working in ceremony often is the louder that voice will speak to me, as a reflection of that. And I've learned now that that's the language of the mushrooms, and that's what it's showing to me in quite a kind of meta and harsh way. They are, but very clever as well, clever teachers. Bless the medicine.
Yeah.
But what and what I noticed this, and slowly I'm healing it, and it's beautiful to be able to do that and to be able to separate it, and that came up this last weekend in seeing that and noticing as I heal that, like how much I'm overgiving, in the lack of trust of what it is that I'm doing, in the lack of trusting of myself, and trusting that the universe is supporting me, and trusting in my own capabilities, that then I'm pushing, like I'm overgiving, and that then reflects in my body. Because in like having also had some body work and being told you can't actually sit in these positions, this isn't helping you, you need to, help your lower back by doing X, Y, and Z. And so I was being really conscious about it, and still noticing how much pain there was still coming up in my body, but just showing me like how much pressure and stress I put on my body in the ceremonies as well, like, and just noticing, anyway, sorry, just talking on and on, but just that thing of the trust, and needing to, and how that is the gift that my body is just talking to me, and the more that I allow myself to listen to what my body's telling me, it is showing me these patterns of behavior that I've ingrained in me.
Exactly. And and I think that's the point. So for me, what I'm hearing you say is my body's saying, like, can I be peaceful in nothing? Right? Like, it's saying, like, well, no, you can't. I'm gonna peel back all the way until you can do no thing and find joy in that. And then from there you can have joy in everything, right? Like, and that's not easy for, like, that's meditation, right? That's not easy for anybody. Especially when we have this voice that says, I'm only valuable by what I do, right? That's what we've been ingrained in. And what we're coming back to, or what we're looking to rediscover in ourselves, is I'm valuable because I am, right? Like, I'm spirit, I'm here, and that is my experience to have as me here. But once we're not informed in that, then of course we can just do things. We work in a way that goes against our well-being and against our health. And so for you, it's like, oh, actually, I'm being asked just to love my essence, just to come back and find peace within this moment. And if I can learn to do that, then I can, my body won't be so, jaggedy was the word that came up, was stiff, like, as in, like, I won't be pushing so much, right? There'll be more flow, the energy will just be moving more at ease. And I mean, even when you're talking about the weight, right? Like, the weight is often because of protection. It's also like needing more energy because we're not feeling safe, rather than it being necessarily the inactivity, right? Because there's people that aren't that active but are really slim. So it's just knowing that, and I think that that's what comes back so strongly, is like, you've been asked to relax, and the body wants to relax so the mind can relax. So you can notice that the mind's not relaxed, right? But while you're doing, your mind's going, 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 going. And you're probably not even aware of, like, just how much is coming at you in that harsh manner. So for me, like, the gift definitely is like, it's like saying, please, can you be
To slow
silent?
down as well.
Yeah, be silent within yourself, so that you can really start to catch those loops and catch, that kind of that harshness that's underneath, and that's actually the foundation of what's creating your movement. So that, because you've got a beautiful life, like you say, but it can only be enjoyed if you're relaxed, right? That's all of us. Nothing, like, when you think about anything, when we're doing it, you know, if we're having to do something and we're not relaxed, it's like, it's never enjoyable. It doesn't matter what it is. So, so that's going to be a process for you, and that's why it's like, yeah, of course you don't want to be in pain, and of course you don't want to have to stop. But of course, the way that you've been living your life, as much as it might seem outwardly successful, is inwardly not what you've come for. That's not your most natural expression. Actually, life is saying to you, you can live easier. You can actually have all of this in an easier manner and more flow, right? Like, actually, it wants you to have more, not less. It wants you to enjoy more. So,
but more being not a quantity of stuff either.
no,
I think also that's the gift, the ultimate gift that it's waiting to give me, as it were, if you can like do it and see it in that way, is that of understanding that, I mean, you kind of said it, I suppose, but just like that I don't have to do anything. Like it's kind of, it feels like it's grounding me, and it's like I do less, and then the body's like, no, I'm still sore. You have to do even less. Do less. Okay, no, but you still have to do less. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, it's also like, and that then brings up fear, and fear of not being supported, and fear of not being able to control it, and fear of not being able to support myself, or my family. And then it's like, but ultimately, now I'm on this path of really listening to my body, and my body being my only judge, and really understanding that that's the only way to reclaim the divine feminine within myself and therefore the universe. It's like, as I listen to my body more and more and allow her to be my only judge, and that's just saying, no, you need to do less, you need to do less, you need to do less. And I do that, I'm going to have to ultimately receive the gift that I'm going to be okay without doing.
Yeah. Exactly. The
Like, and I
universe
have to
is,
trust
you're
that,
not in, you're not in control. No one, we are not in control. Like, that's the problem, right? Like, that we think we're in control, that we've been taught that we have to control. And we're being taught that actually we're not the physical, we are the spirit, we are energy. And if we can surrender the ego to the spirit and allow for that to guide us, it will provide everything we need. And that's scary for us, right? That giving up.
But my caveat on that, just because it's my trip as well at the moment, is that we are the spirit, but we are spirit embodied. And so our body is a manifestation of our spirit. And so we have to listen to our body to be able to respect our spirit as well. Do you know what I mean? That's a big thing that I think has been part of my learning as well. And what part of this gift of this body is also teaching me. You can't just override the body. The body is the instrument of spirit. It is divine. It is spirit incarnate. That is what the body is. So it is actually also spirit.
But what we're
Just
not
want
is
to get
the
that in.
ego idea. We're not the idea of
No.
ourselves, right? That's something different. We're not the thoughts, the patterns, the loops that have been formed in pain, in like, like when the body becomes diseased, right? It's uncomfortable and it gets stuck in that, and it kind of loops, and you have those same thoughts. It's like when it's in fear, then you start seeing through fear. But it doesn't mean that we have to be in that. But if we don't,
well, I guess we are that too, but we're not only that, because we are that, because that's exactly what's manifesting it. Do you know what I mean? That is what my pain in my back is. Do you know what I mean? It's exactly that. So it's also that we're that, just to play devil's advocate. But I know what you mean.
We're not stuck in that. That's the point. The point is,
we're not only that.
Stuck energy. That's what becomes, right? When we become stuck in something, and what we are is the flow. But we have to know how to let go in order to flow, right? Like, and that's something that when you're in pain, what you're understanding is actually, because pain makes you kind of seize up as well, isn't it? It's like, your body becomes tense, right? And it's like,
it reacts to it.
Right, exactly. And it's like actually showing you that, the only way, because obviously once we feed into that pain, and like we can really and find relax in the pain, actually the pain can then start to dissipate as well. So it's like, and nothing here is natural. When, like, it's not what we've been informed. It's not natural to us. Maybe when we were a child, but through the years we've been taught that we must just push on, right? And that's why
it's not the conditioning of the day when we say it's not natural. It should be natural.
Right. But it's not good, because exactly. And so because we now know, and because we're able to be conscious in the fact that we've been conditioned in these patterns and behaviors, then we can say, oh, actually, I don't just want to do what I've always done, or I don't just, this isn't, this is the issue I've had, is that I've continued these thoughts, and I keep getting the same results. And so for you, where you would normally use your will to push on, it's like, no. We want to come back to the Tārā that doesn't need to push, that is actually just enough, right? And you are, in all your glory.
Yeah, and the gift is also learning to listen. The gift is learning to listen in general, learning to listen to my body, learning to listen to self, learning to relax, learning to be present. Many gifts. Gifty gift.
And that's
Showered
what
in gifts.
to love yourself, exactly. To love yourself and love and trust and all of that. And so now that you're healed,
Thank you. Yeah. I shall
So
spring
now-
up off the floor where I'm lying.
So now that you're aware, and well, of course, that is a work in progress, but just remember to become really conscious of what's of those patterns, and to remember that they're old patterns, and to allow the body to continue to guide you where you need to relax more and see what comes from that. I'm sure we'll speak more about this.
Thank you.
Thank you
Very
once again
nice.
for sharing so earnestly. We love you, Tārā, and thank you guys for listening. And please, also going out to everybody, remember, relax, listen to your body. It is your friend. It is guiding you. Okay, it's not out here trying to hurt you. All right, love you lots, and we'll see.
Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to this episode's meditation, which is a gratitude meditation. So, as usual, if you need to stop the recording, simply to find yourself in a comfortable position, nice and relaxed, with the spine as upright and yet supple as it can be. If you need to find yourself a space that is calm where you'll be uninterrupted, please do. And coming into awareness of yourself, coming into an awareness of the breath coming into a softening belly, allowing the hands and feet to relax, allowing the muscles of the face to relax, allowing each breath to get a little bit deeper and a little bit longer every time without strain or effort. And allowing the sense of a smile to come to the corners of your mouth, just gently. Allowing the sense of a smile to come to the corners of your eyes. And detaching your awareness from all the things around you and into your heart. Might help to bring a hand to your heart, one or two. The other one may be onto your belly, asking it to soften. Allowing a sense of softness and warmth to come to you. And in this space of relax and softness, I ask you to think of one thing, just one thing in your life that you can be grateful for. This can be something about your body, maybe your smile, your hair, your legs that walk. Maybe it's somebody in your life, a parent, a friend, a child, a colleague. Maybe it's a recent act of kindness that you've received. Maybe it's an experience or an opportunity that you've had, a memory of joy. Maybe it's something about the world, the beautiful sun in the sky, the beautiful river that you walked by, the beautiful animal you spent time with. And just see that thing, that experience, that object, that person. See them in your heart. And take deep breaths in to the image of that thing. And allow yourself to really feel how it makes you feel inside. Allow yourself to settle on one central image of that person's face, of that experience, and really bring that image into your heart. And with every breath, allow it to grow brighter. With every breath, allow it to shine more. With every breath, allow the feeling of gratitude for it in your life to expand. And allow those feelings in your body to get bigger and brighter as you bask in the glory and the wonder of that which is in your life. Allowing yourself to breathe into the finer details of that experience. Allowing yourself to see the brightness and feel the joy and the satisfaction of that thing, filling every space of your being. Growing that feeling to fill every cell, every vein, every muscle. Allowing the feeling to amplify bigger and brighter as it floods through you. And as the feeling grows and grows within you, allowing that feeling to radiate out from you into the world beyond. Does this feeling have a color? Let it shine brighter. Does this feeling have a smell? Let it be deeper. Are there places in the body that still need to be shone with this feeling? Let it penetrate them further. Let this feeling raise the vibration of every fiber of your being. Coming back to the central image at your heart, allowing it to stay imprinted there, safe to come back to at any moment, with many other possible images arising already nearby. A gift at your core to feed you. Letting your breath return to normal. Letting yourself become aware of your surroundings. Coming back into your body. Wiggling your fingers and toes. Rubbing your hands together. Cupping them on your eyes. Releasing on a sigh. Taking the time you need to come back to yourself. Much love, beautiful souls. Thank you so much for listening to Embodying Spirit with Tārā and Isabel Almeida. This podcast is brought to you by Rewire Desire and the Conscious Connection community. Please see the links to our social media and websites in the show notes to connect more and access our other offerings. This podcast is brought to you free of charge to spread the love and light we all so deeply need in these times of transition. If you feel abundant, safe, and in a space to be able to give from, we would deeply appreciate your support to sustain this gift. Please follow the link below to make a donation. If you would like to connect deeper and would consider becoming a more active partner, then please reach out to us. We look forward to you tuning in again with us soon. Love always, Tārā and Isabel.